Monday, October 28th, 2019, 6 p.m. at City Hall Council Chambers. 1.0 roll call.
Crump,
Here.
K-Smith, Muckart,
Here.
Rod Smith,
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
Weimer,
Here.
2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings: October 14th, 2019, October 16th, 2019 special.
So moved. Second.
First by Cody, second by Rich. Any corrections or additions?
Yeah, it isn't that important, but in here just said that Crump reported with the mayor went to the landfill. That was me. That, no big deal, but get it right. Show that I did read it.
No big
Well, maybe
deal.
you went too, and I didn't get to that meeting.
I don't remember it.
So with the one correction, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4.0 public hearings, none. 5.0 proclamations, none. 6.0 old business, none. 7.0 new business. 7.1 annual urban renewal report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019.
Unfortunately, we caught something today that it may not need changed, but we just need to review it a little bit closer, and it's not due till December, so I'd prefer that we table this and make sure that we've got it right before we approve it.
I make a motion, we table this for the next meeting.
Second.
First by Betty, second by Rich to table this till next meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So the rest of it.
7.2 is good.
Okay, 7.2, resolution obligating funds from the Urban Renewal Tax Revenue Fund for payment of annual appropriation tax increment financed obligations which shall come due in the next succeeding fiscal year for the Fairway Stores Incorporated.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Rich, second by Betty. And it's a roll vote if there's no discussion.
Weimer,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Rod Smith,
Yes.
Muckart,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
7.3, survey of 216 East Main Street and possible sale of adjacent property to the north.
Following kind of the concern of the addition to that structure, both concern over encroachment on city's property as well as possible encroachment to neighbors to the east and west. We had the property surveyed. I don't think he's clarified the boundary to the east and west, but he has clarified for sure that it clearly encroached city property to the north, there where we have the former railway right of way, and which is now an alley. He basically surveyed off a parcel that follows the boundary line of property sold to Vernon several years ago, and so I would propose to at least to fix our end. We in the future will consider selling that portion of property to solve the situation. There is a small triangle of unknown property which we've known about, and since we don't own it, all we can really do is just basically say we don't know if we have any rights to the property, but if we do, we give those to you, so.
I'm confused if there's a survey done. Are you saying the survey company cannot say if he's encroaching on any neighbors? Like, that doesn't make, I'm confused by that.
He can, I think, it's just, his focus has been on the north part so far, so I
And
need
when
to.
you say
I,
he,
before
you mean the
I say
surveyor?
that, yeah, the surveyor, I
Okay.
wanna make sure 100% clear before I say one way or the other. I wanna make sure 100, that he's being 100% clear about what he's found, and, I haven't had that level of satisfaction in our conversations so far, so, I'm leaving that open.
Okay, and so each time you were saying he,
I'm talking about the surveyor.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you. No, that's okay.
So the surveyor's just mapped it for us at this point.
At this point, he has surveyed that kind of a new lot, that's the bolded area to the north of the, so that would be the portion the city would potentially sell to correct, where he's encroached on that land.
Does it seem odd to do anything or make any decision until we have a completed
Yeah,
definitive survey in
I don't know
hand?
that we need to take action tonight, but
Yeah, like an update.
I
on
wanted
us.
to, it was requested that the item be discussed, and this is
Uh-huh.
the information I have at this time, so if
Okay.
there's any other questions, we can discuss further, but
I mean, there's no reason for us to keep that portion of land.
no.
But didn't he already pour the concrete there and everything?
Oh, the building's up, it's done.
No, but I mean clear to the alley, he's poured concrete.
That I guess I don't know.
Keith Vernon the other day come up and said he poured part way, now he's got it formed, he's gonna pour clear to the alley. And I thought, I just drove down Davis the other day and I looked in there, and I seen the forms and there was a cement truck backed up there.
Can't we stop him until
I was
he
gonna go
owns
through
the
there
property?
today and I just didn't get time then.
That's,
Well, I'd like to know how he got a building permit to encroach on other people's property.
He didn't get a building permit to do that. When you get a building permit, they sign off. It's the property owner's responsibility to locate their property lines. We don't do that, so that we don't become liable in this situation of locating it improperly. So part of the application is that they sign off that that's their responsibility, and if they do encroach, it's their cost to modify their structure, tear it down, whatever they gotta do to correct the situation.
So,
And basically, when we found out that there was concerns that he was encroaching, and again, in most situations, we're not dealing with a building of this magnitude. We're usually nothing's even close to a property line except a fence that's not so costly to modify. But anyway, I mean, his permit showed that he was within his boundaries, and he signed off on that. And I don't. I mean, we
then
weren't
he just
aware
went
that he
and
was.
did what he wanted.
We weren't aware when we became aware of a concern that he was encroaching. He was sent a letter that basically said, "We're going to conduct a survey to determine if you're within your lot lines or not, and that if you aren't, you're not only going to have to pay for the survey, but you're going to have to modify your structure to conform to your property lines." And so we know that he's encroached on the city. I just don't want to say one way or the other until I verify again with the surveyor that there was, I know, during construction, again, there was conversation between property owners, to the east Vernon, and there was some modification about the overhang, that there's no overhang on the east side because he was concerned, and apparently they between the two property owners came to that conclusion. But
And of
So,
course,
Keith still had a question because he stopped the other day when he told me about him pouring the concrete. He says, I still don't think that's, so
so,
I have to see what survey if we have to do or
so
what to get
I just
that
wanna make
right.
sure that before we take any action, that we have documented evidence that, there is encroachment to the east and west,
and of course, because we have no building permits, he can just put up whatever hodgepodge with with
Well,
no
he
overhang.
had a building
But you
permit,
can't, I mean, with no building inspection.
building codes, yeah.
Building codes, he puts up a hodgepodge building with no overhangs. So
Yeah.
runoff is
And,
gonna
and
go somewhere.
again, to add to the concrete, I didn't know that was happening, but we also don't require a permit for any pavement unless it's,
Curb cut.
a curb cut,
Okay.
situation. On this case, he doesn't own the land, so that is an issue. And we should have known about it, but this is the first time hearing of it.
I just think that the minute we let people start putting stuff on property they don't own, you set the precedence for future problems elsewhere. And that we can't allow it. I don't care who the person is. You don't own it, you don't put crap on it, period. It's pretty black and white.
So you're gonna get a survey or get some more information from the surveyor as to where exactly the building sits.
Correct. I mean, if I know, if this surveyor says that he's encroaching on his neighbors, it's pretty easy to say that's your responsibility to repair. You've gotta move, alter the building this way or whatever.
So for clarification.
Because he's not building as he stated he would in his permit. So,
So my question, so for clarification, if a person's encroaching, even if they're encroaching on city property, they pay for the survey, right? That has to be done?
he
They-
should be, he'll be billed for the cost
Yeah.
of the survey.
The pay for the survey, they have to pay to remedy the fact that they've encroached?
In our situation, I mean, could we tell him to tear down the building? We probably could legally, but I think our best route is to just sell the land. We had discussed it prior, before he started building. We had obviously some issues with communication and nothing ever occurred. I don't see a reason to pick a fight on that side, but we do need to stand up for the neighbors that, to the east and west, so.
And John, do the neighbors feel like there's encroachment?
He thought it was close. I mean, they have to get the survey to verify. Like Jacob said, usually there's a lot of room, but this is,
In the
this is
downtown where
close.
they're allowed to build right on the property
Zero
line,
lot line.
it gets more difficult, to establish that.
Is this something we should table and request that we have a definitive survey from the surveyor on exactly what's going on?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm glad we got the heads up, because people ask, people around town talk about it.
I already planning to make that crystal clear that we want to verify if it's within his property lines.
Hey, I'm late getting here. Are you talking about me? I mean, my property?
Could you please,
Yeah, I'd like to.
Come up to the podium.
Okay. I didn't, thought it started at 6, I must be late. Okay, what's the issue now?
we're talking about, the property adjacent to you.
Okay, what about it?
We've had a surveyor look at it. We still don't know 100% sure if it's encroaching, to the east or west. We're working to find that out.
Well, Cordic was up there today, and he was measuring Joe Corpson's lot, and I wondered what was going on. Now, I think it's funny. First of all, let's back up and start over. When I came down here to buy that property, you said you couldn't sell it because it took time. I said, okay. I came down the next day and talked to the city minister, it might be you, I guess. And I said, I want to buy that property, but I want a building permit. He said, okay. So I paid for the building permit, and I said, still want to buy that property. Then the issue of the tree came up, and we addressed that issue, and you told me that if I'd take the tree down and pay for the surveying, that was okay. I says, okay, that's what I'll do. Okay, your city man come out and checked the pins on the site that was there from before, and he okayed it. He came back after the foundation it was in and okayed it. So I don't see where you think I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know where you think I'm encroaching on somebody's property.
I mean, based on the survey, you're encroaching on city property.
But
To the
I,
north.
I walked in here, and that night we had the meeting, everybody was in favor of selling it to me too.
But we haven't.
Huh?
We haven't. You have not purchased it yet. You don't own
But
that property.
but when them pins were in there, that this carpenter, is that his name, come up and inspected, them pins were there. I mean, that one side, that pin was right in a tree, the roots of that tree. Now, I don't know. Now, I can't believe this is an issue before the city council. When I did everything like you said, I paid for the permit, he came out and looked at the pins, he okayed it, I came down and talked to him, and he says, okay, if you take the tree down, and we'll sell you the lot. Okay, and then he sent the city workers up there to watch me take the tree down and asked me if I had insurance for liability on the lines. I says, I do. So I don't see where anything's wrong.
When people come in and get a building permit, do we make copies of their plans? So there's a file here at the city hall, right?
We
So-
have the permit on file.
So whatever he asks to do to get a building permit, we have the layout, the square, what the measurement he plans to do and everything. So if
Correct.
what you haven't done is exactly what you gave the city, then we wouldn't have that, correct? Okay.
Correct.
They sent Carpenter up there to inspect the pins.
That's a separate issue.
I don't know, I don't see why there's even an issue.
All we're trying to do is verify that,
Now, I mean, I don't know, which property are you trying to say I encroached on?
well, we already know that there was encroachment on city property. What we're trying to verify is to the neighbors east and west.
What?
We're trying to verify that there wasn't encroachment, to your neighbors on the east and west side.
Well, that's where the pins were. Which neighbor am I encroaching on?
I'm not saying that you are.
Huh?
I'm not saying that you are, I'm just we're trying to verify that.
So, once we get the rest of the survey, we can move forward with the sale of said property.
Yeah, I think once we have,
Cordick was up there today and he
Yep.
was surveying Julie's property. Now, what the hell was he trying that for?
again, I think he's trying to find your shared property line, to ensure that no part of your building crosses over, including the overhang. And if it doesn't, then we've got nothing to worry about.
So I'm surprised this is an issue. Now, like I say, I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't think it started that fast. That's what I got to say.
So at this point, we don't really have enough information to tell you it's an issue or not, Dean. So,
Okay. Well, I can't see where it's an issue where Carpenter was the guy that come up and was inspected and passed it.
well, we'll know
He's
more
not a
once
surveyor.
once the survey comes back in, then we'll know where everything lays.
I wouldn't even known this was on the agenda until somebody said, I think I talked to him the other day and he says it's on the agenda. I said, what are we talking about? That's
Dean,
all I
when
got.
did you,
Huh?
do you remember when you started construction of the addition?
Oh, you could tell by the building permit. Matter of fact, I held off a week because Keith Vernon didn't want a foot overhang on the top, hanging over his. And then I did what he wanted on his side. And
You don't know, can you give me a month? I'm not looking for an exact day.
What?
when you started construction?
I'd have to get the building permit or see when I wrote the check. I guess, I mean, I thought it was cut and dried. I was buying the property and we agreed that I pay for the surveying and take the tree down, and that's, is that my understanding or is it a different story now?
I mean, I think the intention is to sell the property, but before we do that, we wanna make sure everything else is correct.
And I misunderstood then, cause I thought at the last meeting you attended, you wanted to buy the property. We said we have to give public notice. We said we had to get an attorney, drop a contract. We said we needed a survey done, and that we had a piece of property, we didn't know who it belonged to, that needed public notice, and it could take 60 to 90 days. You said, forget it then, I don't wanna wait that long.
I
And
did,
you said that.
yeah.
And so you leave saying, forget it, I don't
But
wanna
then-
wait
but
that
I
long.
al-
Let me finish, please.
Okay.
And so you leave, forget it, I don't wanna wait that long. A week later, you've got cement trucks and building stuff going on, and it was like, oh, that was different than what was said in a meeting a week ago.
You're correct.
So you have to understand why when we're discussing
That's
it,
why
we want clarification.
That's why I addressed the issue. I came down the next morning and I said, I will apply for the building permit on my property and build on that, and then when I buy that in another year, I'll build further out.
So, Dean, in case you did go onto city property, then you extended past what you said your building permit was going to do. Cause you just said you're gonna build on your property. And then.
No, I didn't, no.
You just said it.
Just
No,
now.
no,
No,
because,
you
because
just-
when Carpenter came up,
No,
the
no.
pins,
You just said it right here. I'm going to build on my property, and then in a year, I will extend onto city property. But you went on past what your building permit said.
no. Cause when he come up, Carpenter measured where them pins were staggered by that tree.
And that's fine that he measured where the pins are, but he's not a surveyor. He has no knowledge if the pins ever got moved.
Well, then, that's not my fault. He okayed it before I poured the cement.
Well, and we'll, if you
in-
want, in a memo, can you send out a copy, can we see a copy of his building permit that shows
Yeah.
the dimension of his building?
Yeah, I think
We'll all have a
the
copy.
building permit will say the building's 35 feet by 45 feet wide.
Thank you, Jacob.
Well, when we get more information from the surveyor, we'll know the ins and
Yeah.
outs of it.
He was up there today measuring, I thought, what's he doing measuring corpse lines out for?
I guess one of the questions I have then, Jacob, is
Yes.
when did the city receive the initial notification of a concern?
I don't know that I have a date. I could try to pinpoint it a little bit.
Was it in October? September?
Let me,
What's your question?
My question to Jacob is, when did the city initially receive notification of a concern regarding the structure?
What?
Regarding your addition?
It was in May, April or May, first thing this spring.
That's when you,
Whenever that meeting I was down here was the next day.
so you started in May. I would just like to know when we received that initial notification, because here we sit the end of October. That is concerning, that much time has elapsed, if that's when we received it. I mean, pick a month, June, July, or August, too much time has elapsed.
yeah, I'd have to look at when I wrote the letter, to Mr. Wood, because that would have been a few days after I first had the concern.
if you look at the day the permit was issued, I probably could go home and find the check where I wrote it for the permit. That's what you gotta do. The day that you wrote me a letter, you was involved with Keith Zerman, or Keith Vernon. The letter was stop construction, because you didn't want my overhang on my eaves hanging a foot on the property. And I said, okay, no problem, I'll build it without the overhang. That's when, first time you ever sent me a letter.
So the letter said stop construction?
Huh?
The letter said stop construction?
Correct. And I came down there and I talked to him personally in his office, and I said, well, that's no problem, I won't put an overhang on his side of the building.
Well, either way, till we have more information from the surveyor, we can't do much with it. Do you need it tabled till then, or?
That's what I would recommend.
I would expect this survey to be completed by our next meeting. And I would have thought it would have been completed by this meeting. It was pretty clear in the last meeting.
Make the motion, we table this till we receive more information from surveyor.
Second.
First by Cody, second by Betty to table this till we get
Probably wouldn't hurt to have the surveyor at this meeting in case there's questions for him. If
I will
that's
see
possible.
if that's possible.
And I think if we have that meeting, I think we have the guy to come up and give me the okay with the pins in their carpenter at this next meeting too. I request.
I'll possibly talk with Greg about it, but ultimately it's the property owner's responsibility to locate their pins and verify where their property lines are.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. 7.4, pay request number 2 in the amount of $298,484.54 to FL Crapful for the wastewater treatment plant phosphorus removal project.
So moved.
Second.
First by Cody, second by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7.5, resolution approving and accepting the work done by FL Crapful on the wastewater treatment plant phosphorus removal project.
So moved.
Second.
First by Cody, second by Rich.
Croffle has signed off on all the work. It's acceptable.
Snyder Engineering has reviewed it and
Snyder, I'm sorry. Croffle's the
recommend
construction.
that they've met all their contractual obligations. It is up and running.
They did it with time to spare.
They did. Per our contract, that, basically we operated different than previous contracts where we had liquidated damages. Instead, we did incentives and disincentives. And so, basically, they had, an opportunity to get additional payment by completing the project early, which they did. On the flip side, if they were late, they would have penalties, and it's more black and white than the liquidated damages are. So in this case, they were well over 14 days early, and that's the cap for their incentive. So
Good.
Any further discussion? It's a roll vote.
Weimer,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Rodsmith,
Yes,
Lockhart,
Yes.
Crum,
Yes.
7.6, review and approval of current bills.
So moved.
First by Betty,
Second.
second by John. Any questions on any of them? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. 8.0, city administrators report.
I just got back into town today. Been out of town a lot lately for Iowa Rural Water Conference in Dubuque. That will satisfy my continuing education for this year on my utility licenses. And then the 18th through the 25th, I was in Nashville for the International City Managers Conference, and it was very good, as they always have been in my experience, and did a few field demos, one on historic preservation, one in the kind of the new hip neighborhood of Nashville, and then another in Franklin, Tennessee, which is just south of Nashville, and kind of looking at how they're redeveloping their main street. So those were kind of my big. There's also more traditional classroom seminar type things, but the field demos were the more beneficial, I felt like. So what else? I did receive a draft report from the MI2 for the water and wastewater. I haven't really looked at the draft, but they're supposed to be finishing that up, and so I would think next couple meetings we'll have them back to present what they found. We've got the downtown assessment from the IEDA coming up. That will be November 19th through the 21st. They'll be here, I think they're here 2.5 days. On the last day, they'll do a public presentation, so we'll be setting up that meeting so that the community can hear kind of what they found and give us some guidance to move forward with our downtown redevelopment. So that's all I can think of, unless there's questions.
Any questions for Jacob? If not, we'll go to 9.0, mayor and council reports on boards and commissions.
I don't have a report on a board, but I do wanna talk, before we get into budget time, about sidewalk from Roland Street to Chamber. And maybe start that process. The more people I see getting east to west, west to east.
There are a lot of people walking.
Yeah, there really is, and that's a very much needed section of sidewalk.
Okay.
Just so you could get the information together, so it could be budgeted for in the next fiscal year.
Nobody else has any? 10.0, public with business with the council on items not on the agenda. Were you getting up, Todd? No. 11.0, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
First by Rich, second by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Alright.
Opposed? Carried.